The sun was playing peekaboo with my curtains, but I was already awake. I didn't need the sun to tell me it was a special day. I could feel it in my toes. It was a bouncy, fizzy feeling, like when you shake a soda can too much. Today, I wasn't 7 anymore. I was 8. 8 is a grown-up number. It's the number of spiders' legs and the shape of a racetrack. Mom said it was a number that meant I was big enough to know better, but still small enough to get piggyback rides. I wiggled out of bed and put on the dress Mom had laid out for me. It was blue, the color of the sky just before the stars come out, and it had a ribbon that tied in a big bow at the back. It was my official birthday dress. I stared at myself in the mirror, turning this way and that. Being 8 looked good on me. Downstairs, the smell of pancakes was thick in the air. Not just any pancakes. Mom only made the ones with chocolate chips on special days. My heart did a little flip-flop. On the kitchen table, there was a small stack just for me, with a candle already sticking out of the top. But I wasn't looking at the pancakes. I was looking at the stairs, waiting. My dad, Thomas, was always the last one down. He works a lot. Mom says he's a very important man and that his job is to build things, big things that touch the clouds. I always imagined him with a yellow hard hat, pointing at big cranes, even though he just wore a suit and carried a briefcase. In my hand, I was clutching a card I'd made for him. It had a drawing of our family on the front. I was in the middle, holding a giant balloon, and he was holding my hand. I'd used all my best glitter pens on it. Finally, I heard his footsteps. He came down the stairs, but he wasn't looking at me. He was on his phone, his forehead all wrinkly like it always was in the morning. He had his work suit on, and he was moving fast. He grabbed a piece of toast from the counter and started walking toward the door. My bouncy, fizzy feeling started to go a little flat. "Dad," I said, my voice small. He stopped with his hand on the doorknob and looked over his shoulder. "Morning, Lilybug. I've got to run. Big meeting today." My heart started beating fast. It felt important to say it right now before he left. I held up the glittery card. "Dad, it's my birthday." He glanced at the card, then at his watch. His face didn't change. He just sighed, a tired sound. "Lily, we're too busy this week. We'll do something this weekend, maybe. I have to go." And just like that, he was gone. The door clicked shut, leaving me standing there with my sparkly card and a stack of chocolate chip pancakes I didn't want anymore. The fizzy feeling was all gone, replaced by a heavy, quiet lump in my tummy. Busy. He was too busy for my 8th birthday. My mom came over and knelt down in front of me. Her face was soft and sad. She gently took the sparkly card from my hand and placed it on the table next to the pancakes. "Oh, honey," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. I leaned into her, but it felt like I was made of wood. I wanted to cry, but the tears were stuck somewhere behind the lump in my tummy. "He didn't mean it like that, Lily," she said, stroking my hair. "You know how he gets when he has a big project? His brain is just full of numbers and blueprints. He loves you more than all the buildings in the world." I knew she was trying to build a bridge over the quiet, empty space my dad had left, but her words felt shaky. I looked at the pancakes. The chocolate chips looked like little brown frowns. The candle stood tall, but it wasn't lit. What was the point of a birthday candle if you didn't have a wish to make? Or maybe I did have a wish, but it was too big and sad for a little flame. "I'm not hungry," I mumbled, pushing the plate away. Mom's shoulders slumped. She didn't push. She just sighed, a sound so different from my dad's. His was a sigh of hurry and stress. Hers was a sigh of a balloon slowly losing its air. The car ride to school was quiet. Mom tried to play my favorite songs, the ones we always sang at the top of our lungs, but the words wouldn't come out of my mouth. They were trapped with the tears. I just watched the houses and trees blur by, my reflection a sad little ghost in the window. At school, my best friend Sarah ran up to me the second I walked into the classroom. She was holding a small box wrapped in shiny pink paper. "Happy birthday," she shouted, her eyes wide with excitement. "Can I come over after school? Are we having cake?" I felt my cheeks get hot. Everyone in class knew it was my birthday. Mrs. Davison had put my name on the board under a big chalk-drawn birthday cake. I took the gift from Sarah and looked down at my shoes. "I don't know," I said. "My dad's busy this week, maybe this weekend." The words tasted like a lie, even though they were the ones my dad had said. Sarah's happy face crumpled a little. "Oh, okay." All day, I felt like I was wearing a big, invisible sign that said, "Her dad is too busy for her." During art class, we were told to draw our favorite memory. I used to love drawing my family, but today, I just drew a picture of my dog, Buster, chasing a red ball in the park. He was never too busy to play. When the final bell rang, I packed my bag slowly. I left the glittery card on my desk at home, but I could still feel its sharp corners in my mind. Walking out of the school gates, I saw other kids running to their dads, getting lifted up into big bear hugs. A dad was kneeling, tying his son's shoelace. Another was laughing, a deep, rumbly sound that I suddenly missed more than anything. My mom was waiting for me, a small, hopeful smile on her face. I tried to smile back, but it felt like trying to bend a ruler. It was just going to snap. When we got home, the house was even quieter than when we left. The pancakes were gone from the table, but the unlit candle was still there, a lonely little soldier on the kitchen counter. Mom saw me looking at it. "How about we light it tonight, just the two of us?" she suggested, her voice bright and a little too cheerful. "We can get a cupcake from the bakery. The one with the extra swirly frosting you love." I just shrugged. A cupcake wasn't a dad. Swirly frosting couldn't build big things or give piggyback rides. It was just sugar. I went up to my room and closed the door. Sarah's present was still in my backpack, a small, hard square. I didn't feel like opening it. Presents were for birthdays, and my birthday felt like it had been canceled. I sat on my bed and looked around my room. On my wall, there was a framed picture from last year's birthday. I was on my dad's shoulders, my hands messy with cake, and we were both laughing so hard it looked like we were shouting. His face in the picture was all crinkled up with happiness, nothing like the wrinkly, stressed face from this morning. I wondered what was so important at his work. What kind of meeting could be more important than your daughter turning 8? Mom said he loved me more than all the buildings in the world, but today it felt like the buildings were winning. I hugged my knees to my chest and tried to imagine him in his meeting. Was he talking in his big, serious voice? Was he thinking about numbers and blueprints? Or did a tiny part of his brain remember the little girl in the blue dress he'd left by the door? A little while later, Mom knocked softly. "Lilybug, I have a surprise for you." I didn't answer, so she opened the door a crack. She was holding a tray. On it was the cupcake with the extra swirly frosting, and the little candle was lit, its flame dancing and flickering. She'd also brought a glass of milk and Sarah's present. She set the tray on my bedside table. "Go on," she urged gently. "Make a wish." I looked at the tiny flame. It was bright and warm, a little spot of light in my gray day. I closed my eyes. What did I wish for? I wished for my dad to walk through the door right now. I wished for him to scoop me up in a big hug and say he was sorry. I wished to go back to this morning and hear him say, "Happy birthday, Lilybug," instead of talking about being busy. I took a deep breath and blew. The flame vanished, leaving a tiny wisp of smoke that smelled like sweetness and disappointment. Mom started to sing Happy Birthday, but her voice was wobbly, and she stopped after the first line. We just sat there in the quiet for a moment. Then she pushed Sarah's gift towards me. "Why don't you see what your friend gave you?" I slowly peeled off the pink paper. Inside was a friendship bracelet, woven with blue and purple thread, with a little silver star charm in the middle. It was beautiful. For the first time all day, a real, tiny smile touched my lips. It wasn't a dad, but it was something. It was a little star in my dark sky. When we got home, the silence was the first thing that greeted us. It was a heavy, thick silence that felt bigger than our house. Usually you could hear the hum of the refrigerator or the creak of a floorboard, but today the silence seemed to swallow every other sound. The pancakes were gone from the table, scraped into the bin, but the lonely little candle Mom had put out was still there, standing on the kitchen counter like a forgotten toy soldier. My sparkly card was next to it, the glitter looking dull in the afternoon light. Mom saw me looking. Her face, which had been trying so hard to be a brave, smiley face in the car, finally crumpled a little at the edges. "How about we get that special cupcake from the bakery?" she suggested, her voice a little too bright, a little too loud for the quiet room. "The one with the extra swirly pink frosting and rainbow sprinkles. We can light your candle tonight, just the two of us. It will be our own private party." I just shrugged, the movement feeling heavy. The word party sounded wrong. A party was supposed to be loud and happy, full of people. A party with two people, one of whom felt like a gray rain cloud, wasn't a party. It was just sad. A cupcake wasn't a dad. Swirly frosting couldn't build big things or give piggyback rides. It was just sugar, and I felt like my heart was already full of something too sweet and sticky that was making me sick. I went up to my room and closed the door, not slamming it, but shutting it gently, as if a loud noise might break me. Sarah's present was still in my backpack, a small, hard square. I let the backpack slide to the floor. Presents were for birthdays, and my birthday felt like it had been canceled or postponed, like a rainy day at the beach. I sat on my bed and looked around my room. My eyes landed on the framed picture on my wall, the one from last year. I was perched high on my dad's shoulders, my hands and cheeks smeared with chocolate cake, and we were both laughing. I remembered that laugh. It was a big, booming sound that had made my whole body vibrate. His face in the picture was all crinkled up with pure happiness, nothing like the tight, wrinkly, stressed face from this morning. I traced his smile on the glass with my finger. On the floor, next to my bookshelf, was the Lego castle we had started building last weekend. It was supposed to be a magnificent fortress with towers and a drawbridge. "We'll finish it next time, Lilybug," he'd promised. Now it just looked like a pile of colorful, unfinished blocks. Mom said he loved me more than all the buildings in the world, but today it felt like the buildings were winning. It felt like I was a tiny doll living in a giant dollhouse he had built, but he was too busy to come and play with me in it. A little while later, a soft knock came at the door. "Lilybug, I have a surprise for you." I didn't answer. The door opened a crack anyway. Mom came in, holding a tray like a peace offering. On it sat the cupcake with its mountain of pink, swirly frosting and a cascade of rainbow sprinkles. And in the very center, the little candle was lit, its single flame dancing and flickering, casting wobbly shadows on the ceiling. She'd also brought a glass of milk and Sarah's present. She set the tray carefully on my bedside table. "Go on," she urged gently, her eyes pleading. "Make a wish." I stared at the tiny flame. It was so small, but so bright. A single warm spot in my gray, colorless day. I closed my eyes tight. What do I wish for? The wish was so big it filled up my whole chest. I wished for the front door to open and for my dad to come stomping up the stairs. I wished for him to swing open my bedroom door and scoop me up in a hug so big it squeezed all the sadness out. I wished for him to say he was sorry, that his meeting was canceled, that being my dad was the most important job he had. I wished I could turn the whole day back to this morning, but this time, when I told him it was my birthday, I'd hear him say, "Happy birthday, Lilybug!" I almost forgot my favorite girl is 8 today. I took a shaky breath and blew. The flame vanished in a puff, leaving a tiny, curling wisp of gray smoke that smelled like burnt sugar and disappointment. Mom started to sing, "Happy birthday to you," but her voice was wobbly and it cracked on the word you. She stopped, and a single tear escaped her eye and rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. We just sat there in the sudden quiet. Then she pushed Sarah's gift towards me. "Why don't you see what your friend gave you?" My fingers felt clumsy as I tore at the shiny pink paper. Inside the small box was a friendship bracelet. It was carefully woven from blue and purple thread, my two favorite colors, and right in the middle was a tiny, shiny silver star charm. It was perfect. I ran my thumb over the little star. For the first time all day, a real, tiny smile touched my lips. It wasn't a dad. It wasn't a birthday party. But it was something. It was a little star in my dark sky. A secret wish from a friend. My mom and I spent the rest of the evening in a gentle quiet. She suggested we watch a movie, my favorite animated one about a lost fish looking for his dad. Usually I would be reciting all the lines, but tonight I just sat curled up on the sofa, my head on her lap. I felt like the little lost fish, swimming in a big, empty ocean. Mom ran her fingers through my hair, over and over, a steady, comforting rhythm. But even the bright colors on the screen seemed washed out, and the funny parts weren't funny. When it was time for bed, I brushed my teeth and put on my pajamas without being asked. I felt like I'd grown a whole year older in just one day. As I slid my arm into my pajama sleeve, the little silver star on my new bracelet caught the light. I held it up, a tiny point of brightness. It made me think of Sarah's happy, excited face, and it was like a little anchor in my wobbly feelings. Mom came in to tuck me in. She smoothed my blankets and kissed my forehead. "He'll make it up to you, sweetie. I promise." Her voice was a soft whisper. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but a promise felt like another thing that could be broken. I just nodded and squeezed my eyes shut, pretending I was already sleepy, but I wasn't. I was wide awake. I lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house settling, the hum of the fridge, the tick-tock of the big clock in the hall. Every tick seemed to be saying the word, "Boosie, Boosie, Boosie." I replayed the morning in my head, the click of the door, the sight of his back as he walked away. The heavy lump in my tummy was still there, a cold, hard stone. Hours seemed to pass. I was just starting to drift into a hazy sleep when I heard it, the sound of a key in the front door. My eyes snapped open. The clock downstairs chimed once. It was late. It had to be him. I heard the door close softly and then footsteps. They weren't the fast, rushing footsteps from the morning. These were slow, heavy, the footsteps of someone very, very tired. I heard the clink of his keys being dropped on the hall table, followed by a long, deep sigh that seemed to travel all the way up the stairs and under my door. My heart started to thump. Part of me wanted to pull the covers over my head and pretend I was in a deep sleep where birthdays weren't forgotten. But another part of me, a curious, hopeful little part, needed to see. I slipped out of bed, my feet silent on the rug. The floorboards were cold as I tiptoed to my door and opened it just a crack. I peeked down the stairs. The hallway light was on, casting long shadows. I saw my dad. He had taken off his suit jacket and his tie was hanging loose around his neck. He wasn't the big, invincible man who built things that touched the clouds. He just looked like a man, a tired man. He walked into the kitchen, out of my sight. I heard the tap run as he got a glass of water. Then, there was silence. I held my breath. After a moment, he walked back into the hall and I saw what he was holding. It was my glittery, sparkly card. He just stood there under the light, looking at the drawing I had made. He ran his thumb over the glittery balloon I had drawn in my own hand. His shoulders, which always seemed so broad and strong, were slumped. He looked down at the card for a long time. Then slowly he lifted his head, as if he could feel me watching him. His eyes found me, a small shadow at the top of the stairs. His face wasn't angry or busy. It was full of something I had never seen there before. It looked like sadness. He didn't shout. He didn't make an excuse. He just looked at me across the distance of the stairs and his voice was quiet and rough when he spoke. "Lilybug, you're still awake." I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, a small ghost in pajamas, my hand gripping the smooth, cool wood of the banister. My heart wasn't just dancing. It was hammering a fast, unsteady rhythm against my ribs. The tired man at the bottom of the stairs, bathed in the lonely glow of the hall light, was my dad, but a version of him I barely knew. This wasn't the laughing dad from the pictures or the rushing dad from this morning. This was someone else, someone quieter and sadder. He took a hesitant step toward the staircase, his tired eyes never leaving mine. He was still clutching my glittery card, holding it carefully as if it were a fragile, wounded bird. He started, his voice thick and rough, not the clear, confident voice he used for his important phone calls. He stopped, swallowed hard, and looked down at the drawing I'd made of our family. "I'm so sorry, Lily." The words floated up the stairs and wrapped around me. They were the 3 words I had been waiting all day to hear, but now that they were here, I didn't know what to do with them. Sorry didn't erase the heavy, quiet lump that had sat in my tummy since breakfast. Slowly, as if my feet were stuck in honey, I took one step down. The old wood creaked, a loud complaint in the silent house. I took another step, my eyes locked on his face. With each step closer, I saw more. I saw the deep lines etched around his eyes. I saw that his hair was messy, as if he'd been running his hands through it all day. He wasn't just tired, he looked defeated. He didn't move as I descended. He just waited, giving me the space I needed. When I finally reached the bottom step, he did something that surprised me. He sank down onto one knee, the fabric of his expensive suit pants wrinkling on the floor. He brought himself down to my level, so we could see eye to eye. It made him seem smaller, less like a giant who built towers, and more like just my dad. "This morning, I was a fool," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "A complete, rushing, busy fool. My head was so full of steel and glass and deadlines that I let the most important thing in the world slip right through my fingers, and that was you. That was your birthday." He reached out a shaky hand and gently touched the blue ribbon of the dress I was still wearing over my pajamas. "Your special 8-year-old day." His gaze fell to the card in his other hand. "I came in, and this was on the counter. I saw the glitter. I saw the family you drew, with me holding your hand." He paused, and his throat made a funny bobbing motion, like he was trying to swallow a rock. "I build things for a living, Lily. I tell myself I'm building a future for you. But what good is a future if I'm ruining today? Can you please forgive your silly old dad?" That's when it happened. The big, hard, tear-shaped stone that had been lodged behind my ribs all day finally broke. A single hot tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. Then another, and another. I squeezed my eyes shut, but they kept coming, a silent, warm flood of all the hurt and loneliness from the day. The heavy lump in my tummy started to dissolve, melting away like an ice cube on a hot sidewalk. He saw the tears and his own face crumpled as if he were in pain. He opened his arms wide in a silent invitation, and this time I didn't hesitate. I stumbled forward right into them, burying my face in the crook of his neck. He smelled like the cold night air and a little bit like his office, but underneath it all, he just smelled like Dad. He hugged me tight, not a quick, rushing hug, but a long, strong one. He held me as if he was trying to physically mend the crack he'd made in my day, pouring all of his apology and all of his love right into me. "I'm so sorry. I'm so, so sorry," he kept whispering into my hair, his voice thick with emotion. "Being busy is the worst excuse in the world. It's no excuse at all. Not for this." I hugged him back, my small arms wrapping as far as they could go around his neck, my tears soaking the collar of his shirt. I thought the buildings were more important than me," I mumbled, the words muffled but true. I felt his whole body shudder, and he pulled back just enough to look at me, his hands firm but gentle on my shoulders. His eyes were shiny. "No, Lilybug, never. Look at me," he said, waiting until I did. "Those buildings, they're just things. They're just steel and glass. They don't have a heart. They don't have a birthday. You are my heart. I get lost in all the noise and I forget what I'm really working for. I'm working for you, for our family." He gently wiped a tear from my cheek with his thumb, his touch soft and careful. "Is it too late to officially say happy birthday?" A tiny smile finally broke through my tears. I shook my head. "It's still my birthday," I sniffled, my voice wobbly. "Mom said it's my birthday until I fall asleep." He smiled back, and it was a real smile, the kind that crinkled up the corners of his tired eyes. "Well, in that case," he said, his voice getting a little stronger. He scooped me up into his arms. "An 8-year-old's birthday cannot end with tears. Where is that cupcake I saw on the counter?" My dad carried me into the kitchen, holding me on his hip as my mom appeared in the doorway, her worried face melting into a smile. He looked at the sad little cupcake on the counter. "We can do better," he declared. With a new energy, he took out 8 fresh candles and pushed them into the pink frosting. He lit them all, and the little cake was suddenly ablaze with light, a tiny bonfire just for me. The warm glow danced in his eyes. "Okay, Lilybug," he said softly. "Make a wish. A big one." I looked at the light, at my mom's smiling face, and at my dad, who was looking at me like I was everything. He was here. He was sorry. I didn't need to wish for that anymore. I made a new wish, for my dad to always remember this moment. I took a deep breath and blew out the flames. In the sudden darkness, my dad's deep voice began to sing, "Happy Birthday," and my mom quickly joined in. Their voices wrapped around me, a perfect private song in the middle of the night. When they finished, my dad hugged me tight. "I love you, Lilybug," he said. "More than all the buildings in the world. Don't you ever forget that." I held him tight, the heavy lump in my tummy completely gone. It was replaced by a warm, glowing feeling, as if I'd swallowed a tiny star. It wasn't the birthday I had expected, but it was the one I would never forget.